Yeah. There's been instances where we've talked remixes, talked features and things like that. Admittedly, all that sort of got pushed to one side when the label took control. But I think we're back to being a lot more open with that now.
Wow. That would be very intriguing to me to hear. Because I feel like, you know, like, in a sense, like we talk about like these different genres of music. Like, ultimately, it would be cool to see, you know, like a band like you guys to come together with different people and collaborate to create a different sound that nobody's ever heard before. Because that's what's going to create the next movement of rock music, right?
100%. I think
that's it.
I think everyone, I really feel like as a musician, everybody strives for that, to find that new thing that's you, that nobody else can be. You know, people can try and imitate, but it's never quite there, you know. And obviously there's so many classic bands that, you know, I'm huge fans of, that they do that. I've never heard anything, and I would say that there were a couple of tracks like on the new stuff that we were doing that definitely have a vibe of like a Mars Volta type vibe. And whenever I hear a Mars Volta track, though, I know instinctively that that's Mars Volta, and it's usually Omar's guitar playing. It might be something that comes from or the Latin, like, repetitiveness of the bass line sometimes can be very Mars Volta, and like that's I think bands like that, I say, they have a certain magic to them where it's almost impossible to hear anything other than that band. If that's what you're vibing and you feel, you want to go and hear that. In terms of what you're saying with creating sort of new sounds and people through remixing it, I see like trance music essentially is just the electronic vibe. It's just psychedelia, but in an electronic way. I always see there's, even though they could be opposite sides of the spectrum, they're definitely, you know, parallel with each other in direction. And I feel like there's so many things that can be done with just somebody who's coming at it from a different angle, doesn't instinctively see a song or hear something in the same way as you do, and like you're saying, that can inspire something. That can really change. You might hear something, you think, oh, I never thought of that. Seeing those new things can make you want to go and start creating something that you didn't know you wanted to create. And it often takes an outside view.
I mean, it's almost like, you know, you hear that, like, people will interpret a song a completely different way than what you intended it to interpret. Like, you could write a song about, you know, depression or anything, and they'll take it and be like, oh, I thought that was about, you know, dogs or something. Like, they're inspired in a different way, that it wasn't necessarily about that. But at the same time, if you're inspiring people, what difference does it make? You know, like, as long as you're inspired by it, like, you can interpret it any way you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, the music and lyrics are there for the listener's own interpretation of whatever it is they want to associate the song with. Like, we used to have people saying to us, oh, Sunset Yellow, is it about a friend that had passed? Like, I don't know what it sounds really sad. It's about a can of Iron Brew.
Yeah.
So they could interpret it any way they want. Yeah.
I almost felt guilty telling, after we played a show in a place called Bradford, and at this show, a guy, he got knocked out outside the venue, and he'd been to the show and he'd been in some sort of fight, and Connor, the drummer, had, on the last song, I can't remember why or what had happened, but he'd cut his finger from hitting his cymbal. I think he punched his cymbal in the last song or something, and it ended up cutting his finger. So we went to A&E, and we were sat in the waiting room, and there was a guy with a black eye sat in there, and he was like, you guys are in allusondrugs, aren't you? And he's like, I love Sunset Yellow. It is like, that song means so much to me. Like, it's what, sometimes it can turn me around from feeling so down and lost, and listening to that. And it was really beautiful what he was saying about this song. And I was sat there, and I didn't want to tell him that, you know, it was just lyrics off the off the back of a can of soda, essentially.
Wow.
And but it's put in a beautiful way, you know. like I say, the music is for that person to interpret. And so me and Connor were sat there and we're like, I wouldn't want to tell him. I'd want him to still get that. I would worry that me telling him where that's come from would change how he feels about it. I think sometimes it's important to not let people know, because there are songs that they do have some actually really stark importance in the lyrics, and some of them are not nice things, that you're singing about. But because somebody gets something positive out of it, it's important to let them get what they need from that song. I probably listen to so many very dark tunes that are about all sorts of horrible topics. But because of maybe the time I heard it or what was going on at the time, it's a really positive experience for me when I hear them. I love that music can do that. I don't know if there's many other things that can. I really don't.